Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey, and every weekday I read one chapter of the New Testament and offer one brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 17. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. Behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down on the ground and were terrified. Jesus came to them and touched them and said, "Get up, do not be afraid." Lifting up their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, "Tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man has risen from the dead." And his disciples asked him, "Why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" And he answered and said, "Elijah is coming and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah already came, and they didn't recognize him, but did to him whatever they wished. So the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he had spoken to them about John the Baptist. When they came to the crowd, a man came up to Jesus, falling on his knees before him, saying, "Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and is very ill, for he often falls into the fire and often into the water. I brought him to your disciples, and they couldn't cure him." And Jesus answered and said, "You unbelieving and perverted generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him here to me." And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out of him, and the boy was cured at once. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" And he said to them, "Because of the littleness of your faith. For truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. But this kind does not come out except by prayer and fasting." And while they were gathering together in Galilee, Jesus said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and he will be raised on the 3rd day." And they were deeply grieved. When they came to Capernaum, those who collected the 2 drachma tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the 2 drachma tax?" And he said, "Yes." When he came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first, saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth collect customs or poll tax? From their sons or from strangers?" When Peter said, "From strangers," Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are exempt. However, so that we do not offend them, go to the sea and throw in a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a shekel. Take that and give it to them for you and me." One thought. The disciples fail to cast out a demon in this chapter. And this was probably very unnerving to them. You can almost sense the worry in their voices, because it says that they came to Jesus privately. So while they're doing so much ministry out amongst the crowds, they need to pull Jesus aside in a quiet place and figure out, why didn't this work? They had already been given authority and power to cast out demons back in chapter 10, verses 1 and 8. And it does record them doing so and having victory over the powers of darkness. And so they come to this instance and they're unable to do it. What has gone wrong? And I think what's gone wrong for them is that they began to believe that the power of God worked like magic. That this power had been given to them, and now it was completely under their control. They could do with it as they will. They come to Jesus and ask him, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" And Jesus says, No. It's not how it works. The power of God doesn't work like magic. It works through prayer. Jesus points out that they couldn't drive out this demon because of the littleness of your faith. They weren't trusting God. They weren't dependent on him. They probably were making assumptions that they could do it in their own strength and they had control over this power themselves. And what's so ironic here is Jesus says, it's you failed because of the littleness of your faith, but if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, which is an extremely tiny seed, then you can say to this mountain, move over there and it will move. So they didn't even have faith the size of a mustard seed in that instance. They had totally abandoned their dependency on God to do this work of ministry. And so Jesus says, no, the power of God doesn't work like magic. It works through prayer. Says this kind does not come out except by prayer and fasting. I don't think that Jesus here means a set, elaborate prayer. Like there's a certain exorcism prayer and a certain kind of incantation, because that would be magical thinking again. Furthermore, there's no indication that Jesus in this passage is fasting himself, right? Of course he's God and can just rebuke the demon, but there's no indication that Jesus in his human nature is fasting here as well. I think the point that Jesus is making here is that dependency on God comes through a life of prayer. Growing our faith is directly linked to our prayer life. And a life of prayer is one completely dependent on God. If you think about it, from a sheerly human perspective, when you're praying, it doesn't seem like anything productive is happening. You're not making anything. You're not selling anything. You're not really doing anything. You may be speaking only in your mind or speaking out loud. And yet, that prayer is fostering a complete dependence on God. It's building faith, and it's giving us access to the power of God. So where in your life is there self-will? Where are you operating by your own strength? Instead of relying upon your own abilities, giftedness, intellect, move to God in prayer. The disciples' struggle reminds them of the danger of relying on our own strength rather than relying on God. The access to God's power comes through a relationship with Him. We cultivate that relationship through prayer.